Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of John and Jennifer Bell Key. John, a Texan who entered the Army to serve his country at 17 years old and returned to attend the University of Wisconsin, who spent 26 years at Kennedy Space Center as a project manager before going to law school, becoming corporate counsel, and returning to Barrie to teach. He's husband to Jennifer Bell Key, software lead for the NASA Engineering Software Branch, and serves as Launch Control System Deputy Program Manager under the Exploration Ground Systems. She helps manage the LCS team that is part of the Artemis missions that will go to the moon and to Mars. So now to boldly go where we have never gone before, to space with the Bell Keys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you so much for inviting us. I brought my wife because you don't want to spend 20, 30 minutes just staring at me. And we're celebrating our 30th anniversary next month. Before I go any further, that's a brief introduction about us. I want to show a brief video. If you want to go to that.
Roger the pitch. 7, 6, 5, Roger, Roger, you're looking good. 3, 2, 1.
We are the explorers. We have a need to find what is out there. It is a drive inside each and every one of us. The drive to wonder, to push the boundaries, and to explore. We expanded across our lands, settling new frontiers. We took to the oceans and learned that we could cross treacherous expanses in the pursuit of discovery. And then we took to the skies and flew. But that wasn't enough. We left the planet and redefined what was possible. We flew in space. We walked in space. What once was a melodramatic flight of fantasy became reality. Then, a new generation of spaceships captured hearts and minds for 3 decades and helped build a castle in the sky that is our lasting home in space. We have always looked up. For centuries, we wondered what was on the other side of the sky, and we have begun to answer that question. We have learned that all the exploration humankind has achieved is only a beginning. Right now, men and women are working on the next steps to go farther than we have ever gone before. New vessels will carry us, and new destinations await us. Everything we have ever accomplished leads to this moment in time, where exploration will now take us to the planets and the stars. Our nearest neighbors in the night sky have beckoned us, invited us, dared us to reach for them. We are the explorers. Throughout our history, we have taken both small steps and giant leaps in that pursuit. Our next destination awaits. We don't know what new discoveries lie ahead. But this is the very reason we must go.
In the words of the late Michael Collins, Apollo 11 astronaut, it's human nature to stretch, to go, to see, to understand. Exploration is not a choice, really, it's an imperative. Beginning with Jules Verne's and his works stemming from his vivid imagination, man has always looked at the stars with longing and expectations. With hot air balloons and the Wright brothers fueling the dreams, it all seems to be within our reach. And in 1957, when the Russians launched Sputnik, the dream continues today with the expectation of Artemis by NASA, along with the recent endeavors by SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic to go further while bringing more to the many grounded on Earth. What is seen on television and at the launch is only a small part of the efforts and requirements of those who want to participate and explore. The realm of legalities and restrictions continues to hamper while leaving many obstacles untouched. The reality is the legal requirements for launch are huge. Every SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin have gone through some great attempts to get things going, and they've done a really fantastic job. They are hampered also by the treaties and conventions. Now, we call this space law, but in reality, there's no such thing as space law, because space law is not owned by anybody. And for you to have a law to control it, you have to own it. And besides, if someone broke the law on the moon, who's going to go up there and force them to comply? In 1963, the treaty banning nuclear weapons in the atmosphere, in outer space, and underwater was released. Most of these came through the United Nations. All of them have been given to the launching countries and the countries around the world that have submissions. They give us satellites, give us other things to take into space. You can go to the next one. In 1967, Treaty and Principles Governing the Activities of States and Exploration and Use of Outer Space. In 1968, Agreement on the Rescue of Astronauts and the Return of Objects launching into outer space. In 1972, the Convention on International Liability for Damage Caused by Space Objects. 1974, Convention relating to the distribution of program carrying signals transmitted by satellites. In 1982, Principles Governing the Use by States of Artificial Earth Satellites for International Direct Broadcasting. 1986, Principles on Remote Sensing. 1992, I think you understand it, you see what I'm talking about. These things have been going on for years, and it is very cumbersome to launching anything in space, but it should be. There's a lot of liability, there's a lot of danger. You're literally putting someone in a bomb when you put them on a launch vehicle. In addition, there are many lawsuits. There's been no shortage of these, and these are where the lawyers comes in. You're gonna hear from my wife. She's gonna do the engineering part, I'm gonna do the legal part. She's got a degree in physics, I'm a lawman. We don't have a lot of conversations. Just kidding. Just kidding. We don't talk much. One of the first ones was a company that I worked for many years ago, McDonnell Douglas. They had a launch where the second stage of the satellite failed to ignite. They were sued by the insurance company for negligence because it didn't work out. What that was the first folly of telling people that when you launch into space, you have a liability. Hughes Galaxy versus the United States government failure to launch after the Challenger disaster, causing a loss of revenue. There was I was at the Challenger launch. I had been there like 4 months at the Kennedy Space Center when I stood outside and watched that horrific event. And I thought, well, this is going to be the shortest career. I was lucky enough to hang on, and for another 26 years after that. And I was there when the Columbia was damaged, was lost too. Nimitz versus the United States. This is a guy that sold acreage on asteroids to people that wanted to buy that and they had a plot of land on an asteroid. Another guy is selling plots on the moon if you want them. All you got to do is go up there and build whatever you want. This guy, Nimitz, actually wanted the U.S. government to pay him when they landed a satellite on the moon, on the asteroid. They wanted him to pay for parking space. It was thrown out of court, of course. And then finally, the Florida Coalition for Peace and Justice sued George Herbert Walker Bush, you remember him, for launching a satellite with a nuclear power source, thereby endangering areas of the United States in case of failure during launch. There was a piece of radioactive equipment smaller than a BB. I don't know if you all know how big a BB is, but it's pretty small. And they were afraid that if that exploded, that would contaminate the atmosphere. And they actually picketed outside of Kennedy Space Center and got nothing out of that either. They launched it, was safely done, and that's the end of that. Moving on from there, the real issues that exist in space nowadays are what we see China has done, India has done, the United States has done, is take a defunct satellite and blow it up in space. There are already 20,000 objects bigger than a loaf of bread floating around in space that can damage anything that goes up there. They're traveling between 15 and 20,000 miles per hour. They're requiring tracking constantly by the new U.S. Space Force, adding to the problem with the destruction of those, which I mentioned, by China, the United States, and India. And there's a bunch of ideas out there how to clean this up. Someone came up with the idea of a box that has a net that goes out, and it would capture it and then suck it back into the box. Then the box propel itself down into the atmosphere and burn up in the atmosphere. The problem is it costs $150 million to pay for the box, and nobody stepped up and said, I'm gonna pay that. Anyway, the legal aspects of it are pretty immense, and they've been ongoing, but many of them have been able to get around them, and there's a really great future. I'd like to introduce someone now that's been working on the current endeavor out there, where I was kind of like a while back, and she's actually very instrumental in working on the Artemis program, and this is my wife, Jennifer Belkey.
So thank you for letting me talk about Artemis 1 for NASA. All right, so the Artemis program, I don't know how many of you heard of Artemis. So the Artemis program is looking at taking us to the moon and then to Mars and then beyond. So we're looking at deep space exploration, and we need a heavy lift vehicle to do that. I know you've seen a lot of rocket launches lately, different commercial entities out there, and that's what KSC has really become, a commercial spaceport. So after the shuttle program, that was a main focus for that to become that. So with Artemis, before we get into further, I wanted to show you a little bit of history, because this is March is Women's History Month. So if you'll see the arrow, this was the launch control room during the Apollo 11 liftoff, and the arrow is pointing to the only female in the control room, and that's Joanne Morgan. So it's probably pretty intimidating back then, and I know when I started out there, I was one of a handful of women that worked in the engineering department. So we've come a long way. So I'll show another slide. This is a picture of what our launch control room looks like. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's been updated. Oh, I don't know how to use this thing. I'm right here, and I work with a lot of different women in different disciplines. This is just some of them. So if you look at the next slide, there's about 35% of the people working on Artemis are women today. And we have our first female launch director, that's Charlie Blackwell Thompson. So it's very exciting. I'm going to show a video about Artemis. And if you know your Greek mythology, Apollo was the twin brother of Artemis. So years ago, when we started this launch control system program update under a different program called Constellation, we called it Exploration Module 1. So over the past year or two, this was renamed, and it became very fitting for women and the empowerment of women. So
50 years ago, we went to the moon. We called it Apollo.
What many people don't know is that Apollo had a twin.
She was a woman named Artemis,
goddess of the moon.
We are returning to the moon
as a new generation of explorers.
This time to stay.
And to prepare to achieve humanity's next giant leap of sending the first human missions to Mars.
We believe our course will redefine what is possible.
That we will discover life-saving,
earth-changing science.
And that the challenges ahead will inspire generations.
This is our manifest.
For all who wondered if we could return.
For all who dreamed of pressing beyond.
This is your calling.
We go for all of America.
We go.
We go
as the Artemis generation.
We go.
All right, so what is the Artemis program? I think we talked a little bit about it, but it's our lunar exploration program. So we're going to have at least 4 flights planned, Artemis 1 through Artemis 4. over the next 10, 12 years. So Artemis 1 is a test flight. So we're actually going to figure out, we're integrating the whole rocket, and it's called the Space Launch System, and it's going to probably launch, depending on when it launches, it'll depend on how long it can stay up in space. That launch is planned for early this year, and right now they're looking at a late April, early May timeframe. In fact, one of the joys of getting to work out there is a rollout to the pad. Is for wet dress rehearsal, where they fuel the tanks and do kind of, this is the flow, and monitor all the equipment, the vehicle. That is planned, the rollout is planned for March 17th. So to see that gigantic rocket on a crawler going to the pad, going to the pad is going to be pretty amazing. Takes a lot of work to get that done. So let's meet the rocket. If you ever seen the Statue of Liberty in person, the Statue of Liberty I can't even read my own chart. It's 305 feet, where the rocket is going to be 322 feet. So the Saturn V was just a little bit taller than that. This is for Artemis 1, and then for Artemis 2, the core stage of the rocket is going to be replaced with a different, it's going to be a European upper stage, so it's going to give it a little bit more height and boost, so that's going to make it even taller. So this is one of the most powerful rockets. It's going to be louder than the shuttle. I don't know if you've ever seen a shuttle launch, been that close to feel that vibration, depending on the clouds, and that the noise that generates. So this is going to be even louder. I forgot to tell you. So I don't know if you know, but the capsule on top is called Orion, and for Artemis 1, Lockheed Martin is involved in putting that.
Ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
We have taken tremendous steps.
We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out.
We have achieved the earth-shaking, the breathtaking, the groundbreaking,
one small step for man,
and left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible.
The dawn of Orion.
It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this call. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.
At NASA, we have always answered the innate call to go.
With Artemis,
we are going to stay.
Proving that humanity
Can live on the moon,
Mars,
and other worlds.
And share the wonders of the solar system with all.
Our story is one of people.
All those who make this journey possible.
From advocates across communities,
to companies across industries,
To countries around the world.
we achieve
This collective endeavor.
our efforts create impact for all.
Technologies that revolutionize industries.
And jobs that bring prosperity to people.
The discoveries from space
Benefit the way we live on Earth today.
and those from the moon.
Will create a better future.
For generations to come. But to do that,
We must go.
Hi, I'm Chell Lindgren.
my name is Raja Chari.
Kayla Barron.
Kate Rubens.
Hi, I'm Christina Cook.
NASA astronaut Joe Acaba.
Jessica Amir.
Woody Hoberg.
Anne McLean.
Stephanie Wilson,
My name is Johnny Kim.
Nicole Mann.
Victor Glover.
Jessica Watkins.
Hi, I'm Matthew Dominic.
Jasmine Mogbelli.
Frank Rubio.
Scott Tingle.
this is what we do. This is what we will do.
Let's go.
We go to the moon to learn how to live on other planets.
For the benefit of all.
What I meant to mention before, Artemis 2, that's gonna be the mission to the moon. So that will have the first female and person of color to step foot on the moon. So we're hoping that'll happen in May of 2024. So I'm real excited. I just wanted to tell you a quick blurb on what I do, if we have time. Yeah, I'll advance in just a minute. So my piece is very small in this program. So I work on the launch control system. So we put the software and the hardware together to make users be able to see data coming from the vehicle, send commands to and from the vehicle or to the vehicle. And so it's a finite piece, small piece, but the bigger picture is so much greater. Integrating this with all the pieces in parts is very complex. And I'm very happy to be a part of that program. So,
Jennifer, John, thank you. John, if you join Jennifer up there, questions? Oh, no questions here.
In 1977 or 78, I was returning from Boston around the 4th of July holiday, and there was a fear about space debris coming back, hitting planes. And my question is, after today, who's responsible if something comes back and does damage to something on Earth?
You're referring to the Skylab, aren't you? It was the Skylab, yeah, they handed out helmets and all these things. Most of the time, the returning debris can be tracked. Sometimes as it hits the atmosphere, it breaks into so many pieces, it's a guess where the image is gonna go. But most of the time, it's so small, it disintegrates or falls into the ocean. Because 3/4 of the Earth is ocean, so it's more apt to go there. The answer to your question, however, is whoever put it up is responsible for what comes back down and what it damages if it lands in someone's house or something.
We're at war with Russia indirectly because of Ukraine. Until recently, we didn't have a rocket that could go to the space station and take our people up, so we've been using Russians.
Yeah.
Who owns the space station, and How do we kick the Russians out for their war crimes?
Yeah, and then we should make them walk back. We own the space station, but we've opened up to international countries. I mean, when we worked there was Japanese, Italian, I mean, everybody would come in one time or another, which makes for an interesting high bay when you're processing my things, you have 10 different languages. I don't know if they will kick them out, only because we're trying to make this into something outside of politics. But there's certainly a case to be made for that.
Thank you. Very impressive. Everything that you guys do is just wonderful having you here and listening and learning. Kind of piggybacking on Thomas's question, I was curious. I heard something on the news this week, and I meant to go back and research it, and I've just been busy and I haven't. But I heard something that Putin was threatening us somehow from space, and I'm just curious, like, how do we mitigate all these different threats when you have all these different entities up there, and what are the threats basically?
I teach a class at Berry on space law, and one of the things I tell them, which I think is really fascinating, 1985, I started out there at Kennedy Space Center, and I was working on one of the payloads. It was a satellite that was going to be put up in what's called geosynchronous orbit, meaning it's going to go up there and stay in one spot, and it's going to be on the Earth, but it can be moved. That satellite was going to be set at 25,000 miles above the Earth. 25,000 miles. And at that time, it could read a license plate. Now, that was 1985. Can you imagine what they can do now? Now, a lot of that's top secret, and nobody can answer that. But we have the resources to know if he launches one, we'll know within seconds that he's launched something. What our protection is, I'm not able to say because the Department of Defense hasn't clued me in lately. But seriously, I don't think he could do anything that would not be taken care of. The other thing is, if you watch what's happening now with Putin and his marching towards the capital of Ukraine, they're falling apart. They're in wholesale gangs, are abandoning their weapons and their vehicles and surrendering. Even the missiles that they launched, the one that hit an apartment was aimed for some place 20 kilometers north of there. And if that's the best they can do, you know, I worry more about Costa Rica and Hawaii than I would about the continent of the United States.
One of the greatest problems I understand is there's no magnetism in outer space. How do we keep the astronauts magnetized all the way to Mars? Where do they stand on that particular issue right now?
There are theories, there's what is it called? There's an idea that if they spin it, they can, you're talking about creating gravity for them up there.
No, not gravity, actual magnetism. In the early days of the space thing, astronauts were coming back and they were dying. They were aging, they were losing bone density, and nobody could figure out what it was. And NASA finally figured out it was a lack of gravity because we live in an Earth with a metal core.
The plan is on a long trip, and I don't know whether I'm sure neither one of us have gotten that yet. They plan to create a false or a artificial gravity, and that's supposed to alleviate that problem. I'm really not too sure where they stand with that right now.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's not working. I've got a question for viewers. What's up with the Russians holding the Monoweb rocket we launched hostage? Why did we launch it from KFC? Why didn't we launch it from KFC?
Which rocket is this?
OneWeb.
Are you talking about the James Webb Telescope?
Oh, Webb, yeah. James Webb.
Why didn't we launch? Yeah, we did launch it, not from KSC, but from.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
You mentioned Lockheed Martin before, and I've done some videos for them on their space maps. Have you used that? Supposedly you see 60,000 items moving at the same time and where they are.
Not familiar with that, sorry.
See, I mean, it seems like Russia wouldn't be able to get anything back.
Thank you for the presentation, Bob. What is the time frame from the launch of the Artemis to its return back into orbit, the data and so forth?
Yeah, they're actually looking at, I believe if if the launch, depending on, there's all kinds of factors on how long the duration of the mission can be. So if everything goes well, they're looking at at least 5 weeks of data. So once they launch and it returns back to Earth, it should be 5 to 6 weeks.
The Orion looks very similar to the Apollo.
Yes.
Why did we go back to that rather than try to do anything that resembled the space shuttle? Was it due to cost reasons or anything like that? Or anything?
It's probably all of the above. Probably cost, design. Technology is much more advanced now to make it sleeker inside. The more the flickering of the knobs, all the knobs you see, switches.
It also, because you gotta remember, the space shuttle was designed to be a shuttle, go back and forth between the space station. And at that time, the Department of Defense, the military had their hands in it, and they wanted a fighter pilot. They wanted a fighter plane, that's what they wanted. And so they compromised, they built it like a fighter plane, but they didn't have anything up there. So they literally, for 25 years, they would put a tin can inside the cargo bay. And that's one of the first things, you worked on, you go in there and you set up the experiments, everything, and then they would go up and come back. But I think it's because there's no need to have an airplane. It doesn't fly. The shuttle didn't fly, but someone said it flew like a pair of pliers. But yeah. And that's what I heard. Anyway, and so the capsule is just as good as anything else. You're not going to be able to fly. There's no need of a pilot that can fly.
Jennifer, last question, because we're running a little late. While Dick walks up, please understand, I don't doubt the validity and the need to do this. I'm excited about it. But has NASA declared what the benefits of the Artemis program will be? We gained so much from the space program, little computers, technology. What is the declared benefit of this program going to be?
Well, that's a loaded question too, but the benefit is our desire to explore. So if this, one of my underlying things that I always heard is that if for some reason this planet was no longer sustainable, we have to find outside places to live, and we need to learn, if we can, sustain life beyond Earth. And we also need to learn travel. And there's also a lot of minerals and other things to mine and explore and learn about other entities in space. So the benefits, we're going to be here a long time beyond, great-great-grandchildren and so on. So the benefits will help us on Earth as well, as far as materials we use, science, medicine, all those kind of things.
I'm sorry. A lot of the benefits derive from the road. When I worked out there was a company that I worked for that did 60 patents a year. It's that 60 new creations to develop the technology, and they're paid for by the government. So they automatically go into the public domain, or if you wanted to go grab one of those patents and use it, you could. NASA kept what's called a shop license. They could use it, but you could take it and do anything you want. You wouldn't have to pay for it. And this goes back to me, there's literally thousands of developments that come about from the money put into the space program.
Please join me in thanking John and Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John and Jennifer, for a very informative program. To try to wrap up and put this all in perspective, it was only 120 years ago that man first flew. It took us about not quite 70 years to fly well enough to go to the moon. And now in the intervening 50 years, we fly people into space, bring them back. The rockets are returnable. And what does that mean to all of us? If we go back to the Apollo program, the US federal government spent about $100 billion over 10 years on that program. By the late 90s, there wasn't a room in your house that didn't have a product that was improved by the basic research that was conducted in Apollo. And these things that we all have amazing power, amazing communication, amazing research, amazing access to information. Without the Apollo program, we probably wouldn't have them. So that's the benefit of the space program. And again, thank you so much.